Cuba is located in the Caribbean Sea, south of North America and north of South America.
Some major landforms in Cuba are the Escambray Mountains, the Sierra Maestra, the Sierra Crystal, the Sierra de Rosario, the Sierra de Trinidad, and the Sierra de los Órganos. The land in Cuba is 33% arable land, 7.6% permanent crop, and 59.35% other.
Some water bodies in Cuba are Cayuto River, Languana de Leche, Zapata Swamp, Zaza Reservoir, Atlantic Ocean, Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico. The climate in Cuba is humid tropical, and we have a rainy season from May to October and a dry season from November to April.
Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera.
Stepping into Cuba feels very much like stepping back in time. 1950s cars and crumbling mansions line streets filled with legendary music and distinct charms. It's a place that has captivated and mystified the attention of its U.S. neighbors.
This is Cuba's flag. The terrain is mostly flat to rolling plains with rugged hills and mountains in the southeast.
The life expectancy is 77.87 years, but for males and females it's different. Males are 75.61 years and females are 82.7 years.
Cuba's ethnicity is 60% Spanish, 22% mixed race, 11% African, and 1% Chinese.
As you can see, Cuba is very beautiful.
The religions in Cuba is 47% Catholic, 4% Protestant, and 2% Santeria.
Hi, and welcome to Cuba Talk. Today we are interviewing a Cuban named Alejandra, who is here to answer some questions about Cuba. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, our first question is, what is the capital of Cuba?
Havana is the capital, with 2,200,000 people living there.
What's the full name of Cuba?
The Republic of Cuba.
What are the natural resources in Cuba?
Cobalt, nickel, iron ore, chromium, copper, salt, timber, silica, petroleum, and arable land.
What languages do people speak in Cuba?
Spanish is the main language, but English and French are widely spoken.
What currency do they use?
They use pesos in Cuba.
What kinds of things do you think visitors should pack when they go to Cuba?
Summer clothes probably, definitely not a winter coat.
What are some major imports and exports?
The imports in Cuba are food, petroleum, chemicals, equipment, and machinery. The exports are sugar, tobacco, coffee, nickel, citrus, fish, and medical products.
What kinds of jobs do people in Cuba have?
About 20% is agricultural, 19.4% is industrial, and 60.6% is services.
What about the education in Cuba?
In 1960, the revolutionary government began a war on illiteracy, where nearly a quarter of the population hadn't been able to read before the campaign ended with an illiteracy rate of 3%. Nowadays, compulsory education through the 9th grade exists in Cuba. From there, students can choose what they want to do next.
What are some favorite foods in Cuba?
Black beans and corn salsa.
What do Cubans like to do in their free time?
Cubans enjoy dancing, especially salsa. Cubans are fortunate to have beaches where they can bring some food and drink and have a great time. Baseball is the national sport, and many boys start out by playing on the streets. Playing dominoes is also a big pastime for the men. For the ladies, well, they have the equivalent of the soap operas here in the States to keep them occupied.
Who are some famous Cubans?
Well, there's Eric Alamore, a race car driver. He was born on March 14, 1984, and his nickname is the Cuban Missile, due to his Cuban heritage. Also, there is Robert Lazaro Andino, a professional baseball player born on April 25, 1984.
What are two major historical events that occurred in Cuba?
There's the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962. It was the closest the world ever came to a nuclear war. The United States Armed Forces were at their highest state of readiness ever, and the Soviet field commanders in Cuba were prepared to use battlefield nuclear weapons to defend the island if it was invaded. On October 22nd, Kennedy announced the discovery of the missile installations to the public and his decision to guarantee the island. Tensions finally began to ease on October 28th when Kalashin announced that he would dismantle the installations and return the missiles to the Soviet Union, expressing his trust that the United States wouldn't invade Cuba. Another one is the 10-Year War on October 10, 1868. It started with a historic speech known as the Grito de Yara by landowner and slave owner Carlos Manuel de Casveda. He freed his slaves and declared war on the Spanish crown. 37 others joined in and freed their slaves and donated their property. Soon the rebel army had grown to 12,000 men. The war lasted 10 years, but on February 11, 1878, both sides signed the Treaty of Zaandam. The agreement established that slaves who fought on either side were freed, but slavery was not abolished and Cuba remained under Spanish rule.
What are some top places that people should visit when they go to Cuba?
Havana, Cuba's capital, where there's over 50 museums, also numerous churches and ancient forts. There's also Trinidad, which was founded by Spanish conquistadors, and it became a main target for pirates. Due to sugar industries, the city became very prosperous in economic terms. Another one is Verandio, the largest tourist resort in the Caribbean. It has a white sand beach of 20 kilometers and has been the tourist center for Cubans since 1872. Pinar del Rio is another one of the largest cities in Cuba. Its streets are crowded with cyclists, and it was founded in 1669. My favorite city in Cuba is Santa Clara. Many monuments from the colonial area. It has many monuments from the colonial era and colonial hotels.
Thank you for your time today, Alejandra. But before you go, will you please tell us some common phrases in your native language?
Okay. Hola, ¿cómo estás hoy? ¿Dónde está el baño? ¿Cuál es tu nombre? That means, hello, how are you today? Where's the bathroom? What's your name?
As you can see, Cuba is very interesting and exotic. I highly recommend you go there. It sounds like a lot of fun.
See you there.
This is a beach in Veradero.
This is a Pinar del Rio landscape.
This is a Santa Clara resort.
This is a Trinidad village.
This is a Havana church.
Thanks for watching!